Part 38. The Lucky Bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 371. Chapter 371 Returning to her parents' home. Let people into the house. As expected, Fan Qiuying was packing things in the house. She and Zhang Lishi bought a lot of new things. The eldest daughter has already called. According to what they said on the phone, the eldest daughter and the eldest son-in-law will take the child to Beijing North tomorrow. The eldest daughter also took the college entrance examination, although the school she got into was not as good as the younger daughter. But those are also college students. On the one hand, the eldest daughter has to report this year, and on the other hand, they are really having a reunion year. So the couple bought a lot of things and tidied up the house. Thinking about this time, it was really a family reunion. When I saw my youngest daughter holding Zhang Xian's youngest daughter Lottie in her arms, I immediately understood that the second son-in-law and second son-in-law were here. Second brother, Did Shuang, why are you back? The Chinese New Year is coming soon, and the couple are not busy at home, so why did they come to their parents' house? Your mother should tell you then. Fan Qiuying was very angry when she saw her second daughter. She didn't know who the children she gave birth to looked like. Except for being a little bit like her, the two girls are as soft as dough. Needless to say, the eldest son didn't know whether he was being tolerated by her husband's family, but the only thing that made her happy was that she was now living in the county with her eldest son-in-law. The young couple living alone will feel less uncomfortable than living with their mother-in-law and father-in-law. Besides, I heard from my eldest daughter that her parents-in-law had completely cut off all relations with them, so the couple was living a pretty good life. The eldest brother has finally made people worry less, but what about the second eldest brother? The second son-in-law is an honest man, but there is nothing he can do about this honest man with an anxious mother. This careless mother-in-law, the second child, dislikes the two daughters of her own daughter. She criticizes and criticizes her all the time, and the whole family is in a state of chaos. The second child is still soft-tempered, and her mother-in-law will not say anything no matter how much she scolds her. Sometimes when the scolding was severe, I would take the child back to her parents' house and cry. However, even after trying to persuade me for a long time, the child still could not stand up. It only took 2 days to go back and it was still the same. Since she feels sorry for her daughter, she, as the mother-in-law, cannot come to the house to quarrel with an old woman. What kind of thing is this? After the quarrel is over, it is not my daughter and son-in-law who are in trouble in the end. This is not the New Year's goods given out by De Zhuang's factory. We have distributed so many things and brought some to you. I took my child back to stay for 2 days. De Zhuang has something to do and wants to send his mother back to his hometown. Zhang Xiaoxiao and Fan Qiuying finally understood why their second sister came back now. Okay, then you take the child to that house. Your sister's house has been tidied up. De Zhuang, there is no need to bring the New Year's goods. It saves you the trouble of sending them. Your mother will not be happy at home. 2. Don't be scolded by your mother when you get home. Die sincerely. Fan Qiuying really didn't want to accept this thing. There is no problem in accepting this thing, but I'm afraid her daughter will suffer in the end. It's not like this every time. Even if I go to their house to pick up 2 cans and 2 bottles of wine during the Chinese New Year, I'm afraid my daughter will still be scolded when I go back, let alone pick up these things. The 2 of them are not short of this kind of stuff. Their son also sells it in his factory. What's more, their daughter-in-law and son-in-law bought a lot of things yesterday. They bought a lot of hairtail fish, chicken drumsticks, etc., for fear that the whole family would be spoiled. Not enough to eat? They are not greedy for this, so why should their daughter and son-in-law suffer the same consequences? Qin Dazhuang's face was also filled with shame. The things his mother had done made him unable to hold his head up in front of his mother-in-law. Mom, just accept these things. My mother knows this. Don't worry, I promise not to let Zhang Xian suffer in front of my mother. Fan Qiuying sighed, her son-in-law reassured her time and time again, but it was not her daughter who was offended after returning. Qin Dazhuang put down his things and hurried back without leaving much behind. They took the train this afternoon. Their hometown is still more than 300 miles away from here, and it's not even close by train. If I don't rush back early, there are still a lot of things waiting for me at home, and I'm afraid my mother will have to worry. If it weren't for the uncle and aunt at home holding a wedding, they wouldn't have to rush like this. Zhang Xiaoxiao took a look at the house in Jiangxin. Zhang Xiaoxiao was playing with the children. Mom, since my second sister is back for the new year, Xiao Song and I will move to a new house. Otherwise, my eldest sister and brother-in-law will come back tomorrow, and we won't even have a place to live. When my brother comes back, let him he can live with us, it will save him trouble. It's time to find a pillow when you're dozing off. One more fell down. Fan Qiuying paused. She loved her little girl, but she really couldn't live in her home. Okay, then you and your son-in-law can move in today. But the things there are almost there, so there shouldn't be anything missing, so you don't need to open the fire. When you eat, you can eat here at our house, or at most, go there while sleeping. Fan Qiuying couldn't bear to leave her daughter and had to cook. Zhang Xiaoxiao agreed happily. How could his mother be so polite? You are nice to her, but you still don't appreciate it. Song Moding couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth. His wish came true, which made him feel very happy. That afternoon, Song Moding went out for a trip, and when he came back, he drove back in a black car. At this time, even in the alley where they lived, many people stuck their heads out and talked about it. Mainly because in this era, there are not so many private cars, and most of these cars are only owned by cotters. Zhang Xiaoxiao asked Song Moding, and Song Moding told him that it was Grandma who got out of the way. Grandma's treatment allowed her to have a car for a long time, but she didn't like it, so she still needed a driver. Besides, Grandpa also has this kind of treatment. Their family doesn't want to be so ostentatious as having two cars. But now that Song Moding is back, Grandma feels that it will be inconvenient for them to go to and from school in the future. This car is just sitting there for nothing. It is better to let Song Moding drive it by himself. Song Moding already has a driver's license. Song Moding thought about it and decided that it would be more convenient for him to go to his mother-in-law's house instead of his grandma's house. Just drive it. Mainly because it was really cold after snowing in winter, and he couldn't bear to let Zhang Xiaoxiao suffer. It doesn't matter if you just drive or not. But now that I have a daughter-in-law, I don't want her to suffer a little injustice. Zhang Xiaoxiao was very happy looking at that car. The grey and clumsy four-door car looked very heavy and clumsy compared to the streamlined designs of later generations. It was quite satisfactory. This was the kind of car it was in this era. Of course there is a car that is convenient to ride in, so why not do it? After all, she was married to a powerful man. The most satisfying thing is that I have this car to pick up my eldest sister and my eldest brother-in-law tomorrow, which is much more convenient. The old man was discharged from the hospital in the morning, but there was no need for the two of them to drive to pick him up because the old man had a dedicated driver and guard. In addition, there are uncles and aunts. They can go to Grandma's place to meet the old man and have lunch with him. After dinner, the two of them had to go to the train station to pick up the eldest sister and brother-in-law. Song Moding and Zhang Yuqinming have a very good relationship. After all, their relationship there is much closer than that of Zhang Xian. Qinming and Zhang Yu were very fond of Song Moding's temper, so they often got along well with each other. End of this chapter. The Lucky Bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 372. Chapter 372 Transfer to another hospital. Zhang Lei did not go home that day. The next day, Zhang Xiaoxiao received the news early in the morning. Something happened to Zhang Lei. Yesterday, when I was out in the car, I met a road bully who was a gangster. Zhang Lei also had a hot temper. The car contained factory supplies. In order to protect collective property, he suddenly started a fight with the gangster. Zhang Lei was stabbed with a dagger and has been sent to the hospital. Fan Qiuying had long been frightened. Zhang Lexi understood quite well, so he pulled Fan Qiuying and left. Song Moting hurriedly drove them to the hospital. Zhang Xiaoxiao comforted his parents along the way, saying that the third brother must be fine. But I was very upset. Zhang Lei never had this problem in his previous life. But Zhang Lei was also injured and died in his last life. Is it possible that this fate will remain the same in this life and that I can't even escape it? Zhang Xiao's hands were trembling. Song Moting squeezed her hand comfortingly. Don't be afraid, don't worry, I will be with you. The family arrived at the hospital. I saw that the director and director of the factory were all there, as well as several leaders, which made the atmosphere even more tense. Director, how is Zhang Lei, how is he doing? Fan Qiuying felt that her legs were as soft as noodles. He grabbed the factory director and asked. Seeing so many leaders, no matter how slow Fan Qiuying is, she can still sense that something is unusual. Well, Comrade Zhang Lei is currently rescuing people inside because of his bravery in protecting national property. Fan Qiuying didn't hear anything else, just the word rescue. I fainted all of a sudden. Zhang Xiaoxiao grabbed his mother, and Song Moting hurriedly came over to help carry her to the emergency room nearby. Fan Qiuying was so angry that she fainted, but she was not seriously injured. Zhang Xiaoxiao breathed a sigh of relief and then noticed his surroundings. Doctors and nurses are making a mess inside, and now there is one more person. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's going on today? Everyone is running to the emergency room. Go and call Dr. Feng. The emergency doctor's head was covered in sweat. Zhang Xiaoxiao took advantage of the chaos and walked over, and saw Zhang Lei at a glance. It was not just the person who was sent there, but also a colleague who was escorting the car with Zhang Lei. He was also beaten to a head. The two men lay there and watched in silence. Zhang Xiaoxiao hurriedly went up, looked at Zhang Lei's eyes, and diagnosed his heartbeat and pulse. What's your blood pressure? High pressure is 130, low pressure is 40. The nurse was oppressed by Zhang Xiaoxiao's aura and couldn't help but answer. The aura of the person in front of me is the same as their director seeing. How are things going now? Puncture trauma in the abdomen, rupture of the spleen, and damage to one kidney, causing shock coma. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and get a blood transfusion. The patient has type B blood. 600 to 800 milliliters of blood should be transfused immediately to supplement the blood. The emergency operating room must be prepared quickly and the operation should be performed immediately. Zhang Xiaoxiao saw that Zhang Lei's blood pressure was unstable, and even as he spoke, his blood pressure continued to drop. Generally, splenic rupture will be accompanied by massive blood loss, followed by hemorrhagic shock and other organ failure. Must have surgery immediately. The emergency doctor stared at Zhang Xiaoxiao and asked in a low voice. In terms of momentum, others can crush him by several levels. Are you also a doctor? With a bit of caution. I'm not, I'm his sister, I'm a medical student. The emergency doctor exploded instantly. You are not a doctor, what are you doing here? This is the emergency room. Get out. The doctor doesn't know where this family member got the courage to point fingers at the doctor. No matter who I am, get blood transfusion now and do surgery immediately. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Zhang Lei's condition and couldn't move away. Zhang Lei's situation would definitely lead to a narrow escape from death if he was not careful. Emergency doctors know that the family members are worried. But no matter how anxious you are, you can't point fingers at the doctor. You go out, it's not that I won't perform the operation. In the patient's current condition, we will give him a blood transfusion. In this case, we have already contacted the hospital and the patient must be transferred. Transfer. Zhang Xiaoxiao pointed at Zhang Lei, who was still unconscious. He is being transferred to another hospital like this? Are you not a doctor? Are you saving lives and healing the wounded? What about universal love? Where is your medical ethics and style? You are trying to kill him by transferring him to another hospital now. Song Moding grabbed Zhang Xiaoxiao. Zhang Xiaoxiao was too excited. This was the first time he saw Zhang Xiaoxiao being so uncool. Doctor, what's going on? Why is the transfer to another hospital? Give us a reasonable reason. The patient's current condition is not suitable for transfer to another hospital, and surgery must be performed immediately. Song Moding's medical knowledge will not hinder his judgment. Don't get excited. I understand how your family members feel, but our hospital does not have the conditions for surgery. You have also seen that I, an emergency doctor, can't perform surgery at all. I am doing it for your own good. If you want to bother with me now, you'd better contact me quickly. In other hospitals, many doctors are closed during this time. For the sake of the patient, hurry up. Don't delay. The doctor said helplessly that he didn't want to either, but they didn't have the qualifications, and he couldn't perform the operation. It is impossible to transfer to another hospital now, and the person will die without going to other hospitals. Zhang Xiaoxiao pointed at Zhang Lei, and the nurse stared at the scene dumbfounded. The patient's family members know better than their doctors. This time the matter was not handled well, and they don't want to see people really die. Feel sorry. The doctor replied helplessly, turned around and left. Then let's do a blood transfusion first. Is it possible that you can't even do this? Zhang Xiaoxiao saw that Zhang Lei's blood pressure was still lowering. The doctor is gone. The nurse wanted to sneak away, but Zhang Xiaoxiao caught her and said, "What's going on when you're all gone? It's a blood transfusion." "Comrade, it's not, we don't want to give him a blood transfusion. We have a system above. No treatment can be done to patients who are transferred to another hospital, lest anything happens to the patient, and we have to bear joint and several liability." "Real? There is nothing we can do. I can call the ambulance for you. You should hurry up, otherwise the patient will really die." The nurse whispered, glancing uneasily towards the corridor, and pulled Zhang Xiaoxiao's hand away from hers. "I really can't help it. I'm just a little nurse and can't make the decision. You'd better hurry up. Let's go quickly." Zhang Xiaoxiao caught someone again. "Wait, can I use your blood transfusion equipment? Lend me a set. Or sell me a pair. Please, saving one life is better than building a 7-level pagoda. I just want to save my brother." The nurse is in a dilemma. She is just a nurse and cannot do this job. Song Moding whispered, "If you sell us a pair, we won't tell it, and we have no responsibility to you. Please, it's important to save people." The nurse looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao and Song Moding, gritted her teeth. "Okay, you take the patient to the ambulance first, and I will send it to you secretly. Blood cannot be transfused indiscriminately, and the model must be correct, otherwise it is not saving people. You understand?" Zhang Xiaoxiao nodded. Song Moding looked at the nurse who left in a panic, turned around and walked outside. The factory director and leaders, including Zhang Lishi, all gathered around. "How is it going? Now the third brother has to be transferred to another hospital. I need someone with type B blood. Who is it? Hurry up and follow Xiao Xiao to the ambulance. I'll make a call." Song Moding explained that he had to contact the hospital, and he could only contact Mr. Feng for this matter. Renhe Hospital is the best hospital in northern Beijing. At this time, I can only find Mr. Feng. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 373. Chapter 373. Welcome. In the ambulance, Zhonglei was lying on a stretcher, and Fan Qiuying was awake now. Fan Qiuying and Zhang Lishi sat next to Zhonglei. The factory director and leaders did not come up. Firstly, they could not sit down, and secondly, they did not know what their blood type was. Don't say they don't know, Fan Qiuying and Zhang Lishi don't know either. Zhang Xiaoxiao and Song Moding sat next to Zhonglei. Xiao Song, where are we going? Fan Qiuying asked worriedly. Her son looked too bad, his face was pale, and he looked too scary. Mom, we are going to Hoyan Hospital right away. Driver, please hurry up. Hoyan Hospital. Fan Qiuying Zhang honestly knows that Hoyan Hospital is the best hospital. Thank you, Xiao Song, thank you. Only the Song family has this kind of face. How could they, ordinary people, send people there? Zhang Xiaoxiao took the infusion set and handed it to Song Moding. Come on, are you good at infusion? Song Moding frowned. He has type O blood, which does not match Zhonglei. No one else knows their blood type now, so they can't come rashly. I have blood type B, and now the only person who matches my third brother's blood type is me. Song Moding holds the infusion set. Zhonglei needs at least 600 ml of blood, and a person loses 600 ml of blood. Hunted into Zhang Xiaoxiao's ear in a low voice. Can't you use peach juice or something? I can recover, and so can Zhonglei. Zhang Xiaoxiao paused and glanced at his parents quietly. They looked at Zhonglei anxiously, and no one noticed what the two of them said. The peach juice is so shocking. Zhonglei suddenly recovered. There is no way to explain it to the factory director and leaders. Do you think we will make headlines tomorrow? It's not that she doesn't want to, it's that she doesn't dare. Zhonglei's current condition, if it heals all of a sudden without leaving any scars, Zhonglei will be biopsied tomorrow. She wanted to save her brother, not kill her own brother. Song Moding rolled up her sleeve and inserted it accurately. The blood flowed down the tube into Zhonglei's tube. Seeing the red blood flowing in, Song Moding had an idea. You eat some dried peaches. Zhonglei can't use it, but that doesn't mean Zhang Xiaoxiao can't use it. Zhang Xiaoxiao's blood at least weakens its effect. Zhonglei can still benefit. Zhang Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up. Yes. She can eat dried peaches, through her medium. Song Moding brought the backpack over. Giving her a look, Zhang Xiaoxiao pretended to take out dried peaches. Fan Qiuying looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao worriedly. Xiaoxiao, you can't do this. It's not okay for a girl like you to lose so much blood. Is it true that your dad and I can't do it? We can both do it. Your dad and I are so physically different. You are strong. She seemed to be helping, but she couldn't do anything. Looking at their daughter's blood transfusion, they were extremely worried. I'm afraid something will happen to Zhang Xiaoxiao. The palms and backs of her hands were full of flesh. Fan Qiuying would have given her own blood to her son if she could. But you can't watch your daughter do this. Mom, it's okay. We will get to the hospital soon and there will be plasma for third brother. This is just a last resort. Third brother can't wait now, otherwise his life will be in danger. I am in good health. You didn't give me so much food in vain. Food. This little bit of blood is nothing. Zhang Xiaoxiao comforted Fan Qiuying, and Fan Qiuying felt relieved. Song Moding put the tape on and watched as Zhang Xiao took a bite of dried peaches. After taking just one bite, he handed it to him and motioned for him to put the others away. I guess Zhang Xiaoxiao was afraid of being discovered. Song Moding was worried. Zhang Xiaoxiao has too many secrets. In the future, when you get along with others, you will be easily discovered. What should you do? This is his wife, and he cannot watch Zhang Xiaoxiao being taken away for experiments. He is a man, and it is his responsibility to protect Zhang Xiaoxiao. Song Moding seriously considered what to do. There is still room for relaxation. At least for 5 years in school, no one will find out. I am afraid that Zhang Xiaoxiao's clinical performance will be too good, and Zhang Xiaoxiao is too soft. Be kind-hearted when seeing a sick person. It's easy to show off one's abilities. It's impossible for me to stay by Zhang Xiaoxiao's side all my life. It's difficult. It's difficult. The ambulance arrived at Renhe Hospital quickly. Because Song Moding called in advance. The emergency doctors and nurses at the entrance of the hospital are now trembling with fear. Who is this person? Unexpectedly, his own dean, Mr. Feng, came to greet him personally. This is how national leaders should be treated, right? An ambulance stopped and a stretcher got out of the car. The people above were always screaming. Mr. Feng, why have you been alarmed? This brat just got into an argument while driving, started fighting with someone, and was beaten by someone. It's not a big deal. Lu Menxin accompanied her son when she got off the ambulance. She saw Mr. Feng at a glance and was a little flattered. Looking at the situation at the door, all the doctors and nurses in the emergency room, including the director and Mr. Feng, were waiting at the door. They thought they were here to greet them. She never thought about when her father-in-law would receive such a high salary. Although he worked at Feng Lao Hospital, his relationship seemed to be average. Every time they met, they just said hello. Mr. Feng was not very close to their family. He didn't move around at all in the past. Why did he go out to greet them today? Lao Feng looked behind them. No one was there. Since there's nothing wrong, don't go to the emergency room. It's just a beating. What's the point of going to the emergency room? This is not a waste of medical resources. These medical resources are for those who need them urgently. If nothing happens, come back for a consultation tomorrow morning. Mr. Feng was not angry. It was not them he was waiting for, so he rushed to scold them. Lu Menxin paused. Did Mr. Feng take a shot? No face given at all. Mr. Feng, this child has a broken left hand. It's really hard not to come to the emergency room. Now I finally understand that Mr. Feng is probably not waiting for me, but for some important person. Okay, if you want to go in quickly, don't waste time here. Lao Feng waved his hand impatiently. But what can Lu Menxin do? This is Mrs. Feng, a leading figure in the medical field and the director of the hospital. She can get a favor from her. Having no choice but to call to the emergency nurse nearby, the doctor pushed his son in. Help me quickly. Push the person in first. His arm is broken. It's true for my son, he didn't know what he was doing out at this late hour. I heard that he got into an argument with someone while driving, and then they got into a fight. With her son's temperament, he must be bullying others, but this time he will definitely encounter a tough problem. Otherwise, how could he beat his son like this? Lu Menxin had heard her son say on the way just now that they probably also injured each other. There was no guarantee that there would be a lawsuit in the future, so I quickly sent my son to the hospital, hoping to find a familiar doctor to clear the air. Get a certificate of serious injury for your son. If there is a lawsuit in the future, at least they will have an explanation. Although there are 3 sons in the family, the younger son is naughty and mischievous all the time. He plays with cats and dogs outside. He follows a bunch of friends all day long and does no good. If he fights today, he will hurt someone tomorrow, or he will be hit by a car. Got people. She has a lot of that she can't clean up all day long. But what can you do? This is a child raised by his own son with a lot of urine. Looking at the child, She felt distressed. As soon as the child acted coquettishly with her, she did not break up and could only think of ways to deal with the aftermath. Doctors and nurses quickly got the person in, and the other chief doctors didn't move. Since Mr. Feng didn't speak, how could they dare to move the place? End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 374. Chapter 374 Patients with Splenic Rupture. Another ambulance arrived. Lao Feng opened his eyes wide. Should it be this time? Mr. Feng, you happen to be here. Xiao Cheng fell from upstairs and his spleen was ruptured. He needs to have surgery immediately. This time the person who jumped down was an acquaintance. Feng Liadun, I can't show any mercy this time. She is the daughter of her old comrade in arms. Su Meng, how can a good child fall down the stairs? This child is only 6 years old, and why don't you even look at him at all? Mr. Feng personally checked and found that the child was indeed very serious. This situation required immediate surgery and blood transfusion. What are you looking at? Push the person in quickly. I didn't see it. He needs to be operated on immediately. Xiao Cheng is a child that he has watched grow up. This child is indeed very lovable. However, the child has been sick since he was a child and has been raised at home. He has not been allowed to go out to play with others since he was a child. This is because the child's health is indeed too bad. Unexpectedly, he fell from the stairs this time, and the fall was so serious. Lao Feng was also anxious. The chief of surgery and internal medicine, who had been on call for a long time, rushed up immediately. They had probably heard about the condition just now, but it seems that they heard that he was stabbed with a knife and his spleen was ruptured. Why did he fall from upstairs and his spleen was ruptured now? Maybe they heard it wrong, or maybe it was not explained clearly on the phone and Mr. Feng didn't quite understand it. However, I knew in my heart that this must be the patient that Mr. Feng was waiting for. The doctors and nurses swarmed over and immediately pushed the child in. Su Meng held Mr. Feng's hand gratefully. Mr. Feng, thank you. The old man is considered her elder, and her father and father-in-law are both of the same generation, and they have good friendships. Mr. Feng watched his son grow up. Seeing such a huge battle, he knew that it must have been his father-in-law who called Mr. Feng, otherwise there wouldn't be so many doctors and nurses waiting here. I felt very grateful. The old man must be at home at this time on weekdays. He is waiting here in the middle of the night because he was dug out of bed by his father-in-law. They have to accept this favor. Don't say that stupid thing, heal the sick and save people. Come in with me quickly. Lao Feng didn't care about anything else. The child in Xiao Cheng was already frail and sickly. This time he fell from a building and his condition was serious. Not only was his spleen ruptured, but other internal organs were also seriously injured. The entire emergency room is now busy, and all the directors of the Department of Surgery and Internal Medicine are present. This kind of examination is very simple. After completing various examinations, the director of surgery reported to Mr. Feng with a solemn face. Dean, the patient must be operated on immediately. Otherwise, the situation will be very critical and life-threatening. As far as the current situation is concerned, the optimal effect may not be achieved after the operation. The main reason is that the child is too young and too weak. Then do the surgery quickly. What are you waiting for? Lao Feng sighed. All doctors and nurses are preparing for the operation, and the operating room has been prepared long ago. We are just waiting for this patient. Now only simple preoperative preparations are carried out, and the patient is pushed in. The director of surgery and internal medicine, plus assistants, anesthetists, and nurses all entered the operating room, and the operation lasted 3 hours. 5 minutes later. Zhang Xiaoxiao, their ambulance has arrived. Zhang Xiaoxiao jumped out of the ambulance and saw no one at the gate, which was a bit strange. Shouldn't there be doctors and nurses from the emergency room waiting here? Song Moding called. Mr. Feng personally agreed, but this is not the time to care about it. She, Song Moding, Fan Qiuying, and Zhang Lishi pushed the stretcher down directly from above. There were no doctors or nurses accompanying them. Song Moding was also a little strange. It shouldn't be like this. Mr. Feng was a very reliable person. When he called, Mr. Feng heard that he was Zhang Xiaoxiu's brother. Immediately tell him not to worry and he will call the director of the Department of Medicine and Surgery immediately. The operating room will also be ready. Ask him to send the patient immediately and he will perform the operation as soon as possible. But at this time, there is no time to think about so many things. Sending the patient in first is the most important thing. Hush the stretcher and lathe and rush in directly. The emergency room is helping Li Hoxian treat his injuries. The plaster has been applied and the whole body is a bit wilted. Listless. Doctor, are there any other problems with my son's current condition? He should not only have fractures, but I think his internal organs should also be injured. Otherwise, he should be hospitalized for observation for a while. He was also hit on the head. You look at how badly the head is injured. If I don't go to the hospital for observation, what if the attack occurs tonight? Lu Mensin signaled to the doctor, who already knew that she was Director Li's daughter-in-law. Director Li is the director of the obstetrics and gynecology department of their hospital, and he is considered one of his own. As soon as he heard this, he knew that he wanted to make the condition more serious. It is best to be hospitalized if you are seriously ill. Indeed, a head injury is not only a concussion problem, but may also cause some other problems. Let's do this. I will issue a hospitalization note for you. You should go to the hospital first and go through the hospitalization procedures. Wait until a specialized doctor will give you the treatment tomorrow. He will do a comprehensive inspection, which will make you feel more at ease and can better detect problems. As an emergency department doctor, of course he cannot afford to offend such a person. Anyway, he gave them the hospitalization procedures today, so they can live there if they like. There will be a resident doctor in charge of this matter tomorrow, and it has nothing to do with you as to how you want to operate it. The hospitalization procedures are being carried out here, and over there, Zhang Xiaoxiao and the others have rushed into the emergency room pushing people. Doctor, a patient here was stabbed with a knife, his spleen was ruptured and his kidneys were damaged, he needs surgery immediately. Song Moding shouted. The emergency doctor immediately put down the pen in his hand and stood up to examine the patient. Such a serious patient is more serious than the child just now. Hurry, Xiao Wu, check your blood pressure, heartbeat, and pulse immediately. The doctor took a look at the infusion tubes in Zhang Xiaoxiu's hand and the infusion tube in Zhang Lei's hand, and understood immediately. They have already seen a doctor, otherwise the blood cannot be transfused and sent to their hospital at the same time. The patient's condition is not suitable for such a bumpy journey. Why not perform surgery at the nearest hospital? This will waste time. The doctor complained a little, and the blood transfusion was not from plasma, but from the family members. I don't know whether it was because the family members were trying to save money, or because the hospital was so irresponsible. Doctor, our Zidishang hospital does not have the conditions for surgery, so the doctor wants us to transfer to another hospital immediately. Don't worry, the plasma has been transfused. The patient's condition is relatively stable at present, but the surgery needs to be done as soon as possible. Please arrange for the surgery as soon as possible. Zhang Xiaoxiao explained the situation anxiously. Zhang Lei couldn't wait long. The spleen ruptures and the bleeding is severe, which can cause the patient to go into shock and die. Although he has received a blood transfusion, this is only treating the symptoms and not the root cause. The doctor takes one look at the two of them. Do you still understand medicine? End of this chapter. The Lucky Bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 375. Chapter 375, No Other Way. Mr. Feng was outside the operating room door when he saw the emergency doctor arriving. "Dean, now there is a patient with a ruptured spleen in the emergency room who is in urgent need of surgery. But there are no doctors at all now. With my skills, you know that such a major operation as a ruptured spleen, the patient is in danger, otherwise you should go to the operating table." Bar. Jin Swibin came here because he knew that it was rare for the director to come to the hospital so late at night for a patient with a ruptured spleen. The patient has entered the operating room just now, but who would have known that now another patient with a ruptured spleen has arrived? The two patients rushed together. The director of internal medicine and the director of surgery were now in the operating room. Even if he, a small emergency doctor, goes to the operating table, he cannot do it alone. Besides, he has not had spleen surgery yet. Wouldn't the patient be afraid if someone like him is asked to do the surgery? He was afraid that he could not save the patient, but would harm others instead. The only savior is their director, although Mr. Feng has not been on the operating table for many years. But Mr. Feng is a surgical knife in the medical world. There is a famous book. If Mr. Feng operated on the patient in the emergency room, it would be regarded as a high-stakes one in his previous life. Old Feng narrowed his eyes. "It's over. Patients with ruptured spleen." When he heard this, he suddenly remembered that Song Moding called to talk about Zhang Xiaoxiu's brother. Just now he was busy taking care of things in the small town, and he forgot about it in a hurry. Looking at the operating room, the director of internal medicine, the director of surgery, the best anesthesiologist, and the head nurse are all in the operating room now. My heart tightened. Who could have known that things would develop to this point? Which patient is alive, and it has nothing to do with relationships. It is impossible for me to just leave a person in need of rescue just there. Lao Feng walked quickly to the emergency room. Song Moding and Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Zhang Lei. Fan Qiuying and Zhang Lexi are outside. So many family members are not allowed in the emergency room. Zhang Xiaoxiao is having a blood transfusion, and Zhang Lei is like you and me, and I will never leave you. Song Moding was watching over his wife and daughter-in-law, who were family members who did their duty. Fan Qiuying and Zhang Lexi had no choice but to wait outside. When they saw such an old doctor approaching, they knew he must be a very powerful doctor in the hospital and hurriedly went up to beg. "Doctor, please save my son, he is still young, he cannot live without his life." Fan Qiuying collapsed all of a sudden. It was a troubled year for their family. Before the year had passed, something big happened to their son. "My son is still young. He has only worked for a short time and has not even married a wife yet. So young, if they really died, how could they survive? Can't stop crying." Mr. Feng pushed away. "Don't cry. I know how you feel. Our doctors will definitely try our best to save people. Don't worry. Crying won't solve the problem. It's good for the patient and good for you to be quiet outside. Doctors are good too." When Mr. Feng went in, he saw Song Moding and Zhang Xiaoxiao with anxious faces. Looking at the blood transfusion equipment in Zhang Xiaoxiao's hand, he knew that they had done simple treatment. When he called, Song Moding had already said, "They dare not do anything about the other party's factories, mines, and hospitals. This is pure shirking of responsibility. This is a simple first aid method they made at home, but it treats the symptoms rather than the root cause. No matter how much blood is transfused, the patient will still bleed, which is equivalent to all the blood transfused flowing out. If we don't quickly perform surgery to suture the wound and remove the necrotic area, eventually the patient will not be able to survive, and the family member who received the blood transfusion will not be able to survive for long." Song Moding looked happy when he saw Mr. Feng. "Mr. Feng, the patient has arrived, let's start the operation quickly." It seems that Mr. Feng didn't delay either. Everything is really ready here waiting for their arrival. Lao Feng looked troubled. Xiao Song, Xiao Xiao, something has happened now. You are all my own, my closest juniors. I don't need to hide it. Originally, I have already sent all the best chief doctors in the Department of Surgery and Internal Medicine. They were called here just to perform surgery on the patient. But 5 minutes before you arrived, a young patient fell from upstairs and suffered a ruptured spleen. He was in very critical condition and was sent to the operating room. Under surgery now. Zhang Xiaoxiao and Song Moding immediately understood what it meant. Because this kind of crisis occurs at a bad time. If the patient is sent in late at night, even if the emergency department doctor can perform the operation, one doctor cannot solve the problem. Zhang Xiaoxiao understood that this was the year 1977, not the 20th century. The doctors in the so-called emergency room cannot perform serious operations. The doctors can simply help you with some treatment, but if a serious illness occurs, the emergency room cannot solve the problem. There are not that many doctors that can be called at any time with just a phone call. Information is underdeveloped, coupled with insufficient manpower. Zhang Xiaoxiao's eyes darkened. Watching the third brother die? Impossible. Mr. Feng, what other solutions do you have for the current situation? Who can do the surgery now? Zhang Xiaoxiao asked the key points. Mr. Feng nodded. This child did not lose his cool in panic because of encountering such a thing. From this point of view, this child is really a person worthy of a big responsibility. Right now, there is a shortage of manpower, so I have to do it myself. Dr. Li from the emergency department will be my assistant, and the anesthesiologist can still be used. As for the nurses, I can only ask the nurses from the emergency room to do it temporarily. I can only tell you the truth. Case. I can do the surgery, but over the years, my health has been getting worse day by day. Dr. Li in the emergency department had never performed spleen surgery, so the situation was indeed very bad. If you encounter any unexpected situation during the operation, you may. Mr. Feng would have no problem doing this surgery on his own, but if he were 5 years younger, he wouldn't have such worries. The problem is where he is at his current age, and there are many other problems arising from his current age. The body is not forgiving. What he is most worried about is that his heart cannot bear the burden of standing surgery for such a long time. If an accident occurs during the operation, and Dr. Li in the emergency department has no experience, then the most troublesome thing will be. He must say something ugly first. As a doctor, this is your biggest responsibility. Song Moding paused and glanced at Zhang Xiaoxiao, but Zhang Xiaoxiao didn't speak. Clenched his teeth and said, Mr. Feng, please do your best. The current situation is like this, what can he say? At this time, we can only try our best to appease the doctors and let them do their best to rescue the patient. You can't watch one of your own die in the emergency room. Of course there is another way, that is, Zhang Xiaoxiao takes out the peach wine or the dried peaches. Then it shocked the world. When Zhang Lei fully recovers tomorrow, the entire Hoyan hospital will be shocked, and the entire medical community will be alarmed. Song Moding couldn't even imagine what would happen next. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 376. Chapter 376 Bet. Lao Feng sighed. He knew that this was the only thing acceptable to the patient's family when they had no choice. In the emergency room, cold sweat broke out on Jin Swibin's forehead. What Feng Lao meant was that he understood that he, a newbie, could learn this surgery from Feng Lao. On a normal day, he would be overjoyed. This kind of learning opportunity is so rare. But now is not the time to study at all. If something unexpected happens here, Mr. Feng, he will be the only supporter. The problem is that he has never done spleen surgery at all. If the things in the book can be put into real life at any time, he would rather have done it himself. At least he has a little bit of experience. The problem is that his mind is in chaos now. He may have almost forgotten everything he has learned in books. Zhang Xiaoxiao raised his head, his eyes clear. Mr. Feng, can I make a request to you? Although this matter is a bit unbelievable, I only hope that you will give my brother a chance to live and trust me once. Song Moding was shocked. What is Zhang Xiaoxiao going to do? Is it possible that she is ready to show all her trump cards? Don't think that Mr. Feng is easy to talk to. Teacher Feng is very kind, but when faced with this magical problem, it is difficult for academic circles to solve it. Cure without medicine. I'm afraid Mr. Feng won't be interested, but other research institutes will be too. There are so many people here, it's not just one person's problem. The doctors and nurses in the emergency room all have big mouths. Once Zhang Xiaoxiao does something, I am afraid that if these words spread, the entire medical community will be shocked. When the time comes. Xiaoxiao, you can't mess around. Mr. Feng, please do the surgery. Song Moding stopped him. Don't blame him for being selfish. Compared with Zhang Lei, his brother-in-law, he would rather Zhang Xiaoxiao's safety was safe and there would be no accidents. Okay. You all go prepare for the operation now. I'm going to change clothes. Xiaojin, come with me. Lao Feng arranges everything. Mr. Feng, what I want to request is that I perform this operation. Zhang Xiaoxiao shouted desperately. Compared with the astonishing peach wine, my medical skills should not be astonishing. There is genius. Even if this is a lie and there are many loopholes in this lie, no one can deny that he can perform surgery. It is a certainty. Instead of waiting there for so many unpredictable surprises, it is better to do it yourself. Zhang Xiaoxiao had performed numerous surgeries in his previous life, not to mention brain surgery, not to mention suturing and resection of the spleen. She is a general practitioner. If she has no confidence in herself, who else in the world can be more confident than her? Zhang Xiaoxiao had already become a national treasure-level surgical expert, so many people flocked to her and wanted to pay a lot of money to have her perform surgery. For the sake of her brother, she didn't want to hide this. Peach wine will make people feel surprised, it is a kind of magic that cannot exist in this world. She is an adult and knows how to perform surgery, which only shows that she has learned very well from her godfather and godmother. No one can question her on this point. Lao Feng turned around suddenly. Do you know what you are talking about? Can you do surgery? Have you ever had spleen surgery? Do you know how complicated this is? You are now a student at a medical university and have not yet started school. You are now. He actually said that he would perform the surgery on his brother himself. Do you know this is not a joke? This is not just about doing some sutures or bandaging, and people will die. The expression on Mr. Feng's face was very serious, facing academic rigor. He will never let others make random jokes. It is not something he can do to make fun of his patients' lives. That is not worthy of his medical ethics and style. Even if he admires Zhang Xiaoxiao very much, even if he likes this child very much, no matter how much he likes this child or how talented he is, it is impossible for him to undergo spleen surgery at such a young age. Song Moding breathed a sigh of relief. It would have been better if it wasn't peach wine. As long as it's not a peach, anything he says is reasonable. Mr. Feng, this is my brother. I will not take his life for granted. I have done spleen surgery. I once told you that I have a godfather and godmother who are surgeons. Before they went abroad, has been teaching me about medicine in private, and taught me step by step how to perform many surgeries at home. although these surgeries are only used in animal experiments. But so far, my medical experience should be far better than that of Dr. next to you. Moreover, I can guarantee that my surgical skills can save my brother's life. The operations on all those animals were successful. I am asking you this because what I am saying is a bit shocking, and doing so will make you feel too irresponsible. But this is my brother. If I am irresponsible to anyone, I will never be irresponsible to him. I can die on my own, and I won't make a joke with my brother's life. The sincerity of Zhang Xiao's novel is true. He has undergone countless surgeries. A small spleen surgery was not a problem for her. What was difficult was how she could make Mr. Feng believe in her. Mr. Feng looked at Zhang Xiao in front of him. His eyes were clear and innocent, and his expression was firm and brave. Such a child was not a big talker. Look at the red liquid flowing on her wrist. This child wants to save her brother at all costs. Definitely not joking with her brother's life. Mr. Feng himself found it ridiculous. At this moment, he actually wanted to believe the child in front of him. Mr. Feng, I beg you, please believe me this time. I know that I am not qualified as a doctor, and you may not believe what I say, or you can let me be your assistant and you can watch me perform the operation in person. I believe that when you see me doing surgery, you will believe that I am not just talking nonsense. I have really done it. I can guarantee that I have done it, many times. Zhang Xiao almost knelt down. She didn't want to kneel down, she just wanted Mr. Feng to really trust her. Song Moding looked at this scene. Mr. Feng, the patient can't wait any longer. If you wait until something unexpected happens during the operation before asking for emergency help, it's better to let Xiao be your assistant now. With you watching, nothing big will happen after all. Isn't it? We cannot afford to delay at this time. Lao Feng nodded with difficulty. He is betting on his reputation in this life. If something goes wrong with this child's surgery, he, as the dean, may also suffer the consequences, and the academic leader may collapse overnight. His reputation was disgraced and he never had the face to see anyone again. But he didn't know why, looking at the child's expression and eyes, he just felt that he should believe her. Okay, you are ready for the operation. Dr. Jane comes with me to change clothes and prepare for the operation. I can only watch a little bit. Is there any other way now? Everyone in the emergency room was silent. They never expected that the director would ask someone who was not a doctor to perform the operation. But as doctors and nurses in the emergency room, they have no right to stop or say anything to stop it. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 377. Chapter 377, Wonderful Surgical On-Site Teaching. In the operating room. The atmosphere is eerily quiet. After the anesthesiologist finished anesthesia, he stood quietly aside. The combination in the operating room made him feel particularly uneasy. Something seems to be wrong. There is no doubt that the director performed the surgery, but Dr. Jane had not performed spleen surgery. This was known to the whole hospital. As an assistant now, he actually stands in the position of second assistant. But a girl stood in the position of the chief surgeon, and even Dean Feng actually stood in the position of the first assistant. He secretly raised his eyes and looked at the girl. She looked so young, and she couldn't help but feel a little worried. Have such a young girl ever graduated? Is there nothing going to happen if I do the surgery like this? But, Dean Feng is standing here, who dares to say anything, who can say anything? Could it be that this girl is the descendant of a big shot in the medical field? Probably. Otherwise, Mr. Feng could be here? But they did not receive any notice that someone was doing internship in their hospital. Lao Feng personally stood aside as an assistant, which is a treatment that ordinary people really don't have. It is understandable that Dr. Jane has not performed spleen surgery. The problem is that you don't have to turn pale and tremble with fear. Standing aside as an assistant like this, you can perform operations on patients. If you continue to tremble like this, a large cardiovascular vessel will be ruptured. Jin Swibing regretted it in his heart. Others are also working as emergency doctors, and I am also working as an emergency doctor. But this big thing happened when he was on duty. And he dragged him into this whirlpool. He couldn't question what Mr. Feng did, but the girl made it clear that she had never had any surgery. No. She did it. But the surgeries she performed were all experiments on animals. Which of their medical students has not done experiments on animals? Conducting experiments on animals and performing operations on humans are two different things. Without the guidance of a mentor, it is the first time to perform surgery on others. Not even an assistant, but still the chief surgeon. Just let him die. If an accident occurs during this operation, he will not be able to escape his involvement. Dr. Jin feels that his career may come to an end after tonight. Lao Feng looked at the young child in front of him and suddenly felt his heart calm down. The moment this girl put on the surgical gown and picked up the scalpel, her whole aura changed, becoming so powerful and calm. Like a very experienced doctor who has performed many operations in the operating room, he stood in front of the operating table without panic at all, so calm and calm. Even a big shot in the medical field can't help but admire him. This girl was born to eat this bowl of rice. Looking at this, Mr. Feng felt that he had seen the right person. I'm going to start. Zhang Xiaoxiao calmly made the first cut. In the remaining time, neither Mr. Feng nor Dr. Jin had time to think about anything else. Because both people's eyes were fixed on Zhang Xiao's movements. They were all afraid of any accidents during the operation and were ready to stop Zhang Xiaoxiao from continuing to work at any time. But until the end of the operation, the two people saw a very exciting operation. There was no sloppiness or any doubt in this operation. The girl in front of her looked like she had undergone thousands of such operations. How to suture each blood vessel and how to treat each injury. She quickly made judgments and decisions without even the slightest doubt. The use of both of their assistants is rare. And while performing the operation, he explained in detail the impact of each step and why it was done, as if it were the most exciting on-site surgical teaching by a top doctor. Dr. Jin was frightened and suspicious at first, but later he was simply intoxicated. Don't dare to blink for fear of missing anything worth learning. This surgery was wonderful. And he learned so much, even when it came to the final stitching, Zhang Xiaoxiao handed it over to him directly, and there were no problems in every step. Including minor technical flaws in the stitching, Zhang Xiaoxiao pointed them out to him. Dr. Jin knew that he could make a fortune this time. When the lights in the operating room went out, Zhang Lei was pushed to the intensive care unit outside by the nurse. Zhang Xiaoxiao took off his surgical clothes. I haven't been so focused on an operation for a long time. I felt a little tired after I got off the operating table. Plus, I had a lot of blood transfusions today. Although I drank peach wine, I was afraid that the effect of peach wine would be too amazing. She only had one drink. At this moment I still feel a little tired. Lao Feng has been following Zhang Xiaoxiao since he came out. Mr. Feng, please don't be like this. Isn't the operation finished? If you still stare at me with such good eyes, your eyes are not tired, and I am tired too. Zhang Xiaoxiao washed his hands. Dr. Jin is attentive and attentive. Girl, tell me the truth, old man, is this really your first time to have this surgery? Lao Feng has not yet woken up from the shock just now. This operation was the most exciting operation he had ever seen. Even though it was just a suture removal operation of the spleen. However, so far, the best surgeons from their Hoyan hospital have only achieved this on the operating table. This girl told him that she had not performed any surgery on stage herself, but only operated on some animals. If you conduct experiments on animals, you can improve the technology to this extent. He couldn't help but be shocked by this girl's talent. She was so gifted. Most people don't have this feeling. Anyone who switches from animals to humans for the first time will experience a huge gap. After all, humans and animals are different. Moreover, many aspects will feel strange, and the feel will be much worse, but this girl does not hesitate at all, as if those blood vessels are like, through the microscope, they are completely correct in her eyes, and any dangerous position can be easily avoided. Mr. Feng, don't think so much. I told you that my godfather and godmother used to be the best surgeons. What they taught me is naturally the best. They treat me as their biological daughter, the same education. I learned a lot of my medical knowledge from them, so I dare to tell you this. They told me personally that I have the qualifications to be an ordinary surgeon. However, they still want me to be systematic and study all medical knowledge seriously. After all, some of the things they can teach will skip some common basic knowledge. Zhang Xiaoxiao was famous all over the world in her previous life, relying on her own strength, but her foundation is indeed very poor. After all, she was born as a village doctor in the countryside. This is a natural starting point different from that of doctors who graduated from other medical universities. I was laughed at by others all the time in my last life, and I don't need to be laughed at by others in this life anymore. She wants her starting point to be the same as others, and she wants to do better than others. Mr. Feng nodded. Girl, your godfather and godmother really like you. They almost taught you all their skills. I'm just going to do the surgery on you today. We can see what you're doing with this move, daddy and godmother. That's a big shot in the surgical world. This sword is absolutely powerful, and it has been carefully cultivated for you. I have no secrets at all and will teach you everything. My child, you must take this path carefully in the future and learn all the basic knowledge solidly, so that you can be worthy of your godfather and godmother. Lao Feng sighed. Zhang Xiaoxiao really met an expert. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 378. Chapter 378 Fainting. Mr. Feng, don't worry, I will definitely learn all the knowledge in a down-to-earth manner. This time I was really a little daring. If you weren't someone I know well, I really wouldn't dare to do it. In fact, this is me, brother, I can't just watch anything happen to him. My only request to you is that today's incident does not get spread. I am not qualified to practice medicine. If word spreads, Mr. Feng will be jointly and severally liable. Zhang Xiaoxiao is now making amends. She is not qualified as a doctor yet she dares to operate on patients. This is a ready-made pigtail. Once her enemy appears one day, she will grab her pigtail and grasp it accurately. Lao Feng glared, but still couldn't hold back his laughter. You bad girl, now you finally know how much responsibility Mr. Feng has taken for you. If this matter of yours is revealed, I, the dean, won't even have to take responsibility, and you still need to talk about it. Don't be afraid if you expose him. If you expose him, you will find a genius. Such a disciple, even if he is asked to take on some responsibilities, he is willing to do so. In his heart, Mr. Feng was planning to train Zhang Xiaoxiao as his apprentice, and he didn't care about Lao Meng. This is Lao Meng's grandson-in-law, but you must rob it when it's time. How could such a gifted child be left to Lao Meng alone? Whoever grabs it belongs to whomever. Jin Suibin immediately promised. Dean, Dr. Zhang, I promise, I swear, I will not tell anyone what happened today, and I will restrain all the nurses in the emergency room today. Such a successful operation is an honor to our hospital. Dr. Jin, you took a big advantage today. I, Old Feng, will do the surgery today. I'm afraid it may not be better than Dr. Zhang. Dr. Zhang treats you like a student today. Explain while you're doing it. You're so lucky today. Mr. Feng himself envied Jin Swibin's luck. When he was a student, he met a tutor. How could anyone explain it to you in such detail? Most of them read it by themselves. After reading it, they thought about it carefully. When in doubt, ask the teacher. You have to be scolded by the teacher, unlike Zhang Xiaoxiao, who explains in detail while doing it, and this explanation is too detailed. Jin Swibin smiled silly. Dr. Zhang, you are really amazing. Following you, I have learned a real skill this time. In your hands, this spleen surgery is just like playing. Please give me your advice in the future. Zhang Xiaoxiao was happy. Dr. Jin, I really don't take your advice seriously. I'm not a doctor yet. I'm just a new student at the medical hospital, and I'm still a new student who hasn't registered yet. So, Dr. Jin, please keep silent about today's matters. Please, otherwise, I will be unable to eat and walk around, and your dean will also be unable to eat and walk around. The smile is very friendly. Lao Feng gave her a chestnut. Okay, girl, you know, the dean, just want to accompany you when you can't eat. Just for this, girl, should you ask me to be your teacher? Let me tell you, such a big favor, this is not it can be paid back easily. If you don't become a disciple, I will just let this matter out and it will be on the headlines of the newspaper tomorrow. Anyway, for our hospital, that was a successful case. Then it will be your grandma who should be worried. This is the threat of Chiguakyo. Mr. Feng, you can't be a teacher. You're not a professor at a medical school. Even if I want to be your teacher, I have to wait until I graduate, right? I promise that I will come to your hospital during my internship. Can I take you as my teacher? Don't say those nice things to me, old man. Let me tell you, you will definitely have to come to our hospital for internship, but you must also get apprenticeship. By the way, the principal of your medical school called me 2 days ago and wanted to ask me to be an honorary professor of your medical school. I tell you, I am sure, and I will be your professor from now on. It's not a loss for you to worship me as your teacher. There are also cases of forced buying and selling. Jin Swibin pursed his lips and pretended to be quail on one side. In their eyes, Mr. Feng, who was serious, wise, and mighty, could act like a rogue sometimes. He was obviously a rogue on the street. But how could he dare to express his opinions at this time, even though he was filled with indignation and wanted to protect Dr. Zhang? This week Dr. Zhang was actually bullied by his own dean. But first of all, he doesn't have the guts. He wants to be filled with righteous indignation and act like a brave warrior, and then the dean can directly expel him. Besides, he was secretly happy if Dr. Zhang would come to their hospital. Then I don't have many opportunities to learn. Dr. Zhang is not a secretive person. He just performed the surgery and explained the detailed process bit by bit, just like he was peeling off the cocoon. With Dr. Zhang here, I have more opportunities to ask for advice and learn. Besides, Mr. Feng is Dr. Zhang's teacher. Would he be able to learn a lot of skills in disguise? Such good things must not ruin the good things of their dean. Zhang Xiaoxiao was stunned by Mr. Feng's rogueness. Can this still be done? Mr. Feng, I'm very tired. Can you let me rest for a while? I'm a little dizzy. Zhang Xiaoxiao covered his head, feeling really dizzy. Why does it feel so familiar? Then he fell to the ground. Lao Feng and Dr. Jin were frightened and hurriedly helped the person out. Song Moding was also shocked when he saw Zhang Xiaoxiao being carried out. He took the person over in one fell swoop and asked, "What's wrong with her? Shouldn't you go for surgery? How can I still faint during surgery? What kind of surgery is this?" Song Moding's face turned livid with anxiety, and his questioning tone quickly turned into questioning. Fortunately, Mr. Feng could tell at a glance that he was worried about his wife because he felt sorry for her. The same virtue as Lao Song. The Song family loves their daughter-in-law. They hurriedly told him that it was okay. They had already checked Zhang Xiaoxiao and found that he was not in any physical condition. He seemed to be overtired and fell asleep. It should be because he had so much blood transfusion just now, plus the surgery, and he had to stand there with concentration for a long time. Let her have a good rest for a while. Song Moding suddenly remembered that Zhang Xiaoxiao had slept for 3 days and 3 nights. It seems that it was also after helping someone deliver a baby, but it was the same this time. Zhang Xiaoxiao was lying in the ward, and Zhang Lei was also sent to the intensive care unit. Fan Qiuying and Zhang Lishi were in a state of confusion. One of them was guarding their son, and the other was guarding in front of Zhang Xiaoxiao. Now that both children are lying in the hospital, Fan Qiuying feels that her heart is breaking. How could God be so blind and allow her 2 children to have an accident together? Fan Qiuying is going crazy. This is the first time in my life that I have felt so uncomfortable and had to hold on. Children, you must be fine. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 379. Chapter 379 Psychological Preparation. Zhang Lei's intensive care unit is almost full of doctors and nurses. Jin Swibin almost regarded this place as his home. Stay here 24 hours a day. Rather than going to the emergency room, Mr. Feng gave him the green light to take charge of Zhang Lei and become Zhang Lei's resident doctor. The other doctors don't know what they are saying in their hearts. How did Jin Swibin catch Mr. Feng's eyes? They actually gave him the green light. You must know that Jin Swibin went to the emergency room to work as an emergency doctor because he was excluded from the department. Now that people can directly become resident doctors, it will not be that easy to push them back in the future. Few people knew the inside story, because after the operation ended that day, Mr. Feng held an emergency meeting. This meeting is limited to emergency room nurses and doctors. No one knows what was said at this meeting, but that night in the emergency room, the doctors and nurses on duty kept their mouths shut. Others had no idea what was going on. After all, everyone's attention was focused on that night. Mr. Feng called the directors of the Department of Surgery. All of these directors performed an operation on a child with a ruptured spleen. Everyone knows this child, he is a close relative who Mr. Feng watched grow up. Zhang Lei is a patient that almost no one pays attention to. The postoperative recovery is very good. Jin Swibin stayed by Zhang Lei's side every day. On the first day in the intensive care unit, Zhang Lei's condition was not unexpected at all. It was very successful and there were no complications or other symptoms. The next day I went directly to the general ward. 3 days later, Zhang Lei was in particularly good physical condition, probably because he was young and strong. When Jin Swibin was doing the checkup, he couldn't help but sigh secretly. Zhang Lei's recovery was really good. This operation can be regarded as an absolute success story. But the only thing Jin Swibin is worried about is Zhang Xiaoxiao, who has not woken up yet. It has been 3 days since I slept. Not only did he go to the ward to visit Zhang Xiaoxiao every day, but Mr. Feng also went there every day. Mainly a normal person, how can he not wake up after sleeping for 3 days and 3 nights? Fan Qiuying and Zhang Lishi were anxious and didn't know what to do. Their son was awake now and their daughter was asleep again. And there is no sign or reason. If it weren't for Song Muting, he had been comforting them and told them that there were no problems on Zhang Xiaoxiao's body. It is estimated that it was tired these days, letting her sleep naturally, and both of them had to jump their feet in a hurry. At this time, Mr. Feng in the hospital was very anxious. In Xiao Keng's ward, Su Meng looked at her son who was still wearing an oxygen tank. The child had complications after the surgery and now he is hovering on the edge of life and death almost every day. Devastated. Children are so young now, but they have to endure such painful torture every day. Mr. Feng, how is the situation in Xiaocheng now? Mr. Feng also shook his head helplessly. Don't worry too much about the child's condition. You have to give him time to recover. As for the child's physical condition, you already know that he is weak and has congenital heart disease. This time his spleen ruptured and he fell from a high altitude. Not only the spleen was injured, but other internal organs were also injured to varying degrees. It is difficult to say what will happen in the future. As long as he gets out of the intensive care unit, there is a 70% chance of a full recovery. But you have to be mentally prepared. He has suffered several heart attacks in the past few days while in intensive care. His current condition should have required a heart transplant long ago, but his current condition is not suitable for transplant at all. You should discuss it when you go back and be mentally prepared. Not only was Xiaocheng the child he watched grow up, but Su Meng was also the child he watched grow up. He really didn't want to say these words, but he couldn't deceive them. The patient's family members must know the truest situation. The situation of this child in Xiaocheng is indeed worrying. Su Meng covered her mouth and cried. How to do, how to do? Wu Pingjing hugged his wife tightly and comforted her. It's okay, Xiaocheng's natural auspicious people have their own destiny, it will be okay, and the child will be fine. This is his only son, who has been tortured since birth. This child's congenital heart disease requires a heart transplant. But the source of the heart is difficult to find. The son struggled to live until he was 6 years old, which was the culmination of the whole family's hard work. But now it seems that this child can't hold on. Lao Feng sighed. Zhang Xiaoxiao finally opened his eyes, feeling a little confused for a moment. She didn't know where she was. Snow-white walls, snow-white sheets, and snow-white curtains, but when I smelled the disinfectant, I finally reacted. Right? I passed out. Zhang Xiaoxiao smiled bitterly. Why has his body become so fragile now? He used to have 3 surgeries in a row without any problems, but now he faints after just 1 surgery at such a young age. Does this mean she is not allowed to be a doctor? Or say this is a kind of retribution for rebirth? Having received the benefits of rebirth, is it possible that there will be other related reactions? Such as fainting? You're awake. A voice sounded. Zhang Xiaoxiao then noticed Song Moding leaning on the bed. Even if he didn't move, Song Moding could notice that she was awake. It seemed that Song Moding had been watching her. Turned over and looked at Song Moding. At first glance, I was startled. What's wrong with you? Song Moding, who had handsome features, now looks very slovenly. He is unshaven, the red bloodshot eyes are unbelievable, the circles under his eyes are dark, and his face is pale. It is really distressing to look at him. Zhang Xiaoxiao stretched out his hand and stroked Song Moding's beard stubble. It's okay. I'm okay. Just wake up and you'll be fine. Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? I'll call the doctor to check you out. Song Moding looked cautious, as if he was afraid of breaking Zhang Xiaoxiao. Zhang Xiaoxiao felt a headache. Brother Song, how long have I slept this time? Song Moding wouldn't have been like this if he hadn't slept beyond Song Moding's expectations. 3 days and 3 nights, same as last time. Song Moding replied softly, feeling comforted when he saw Zhang Xiaoxiao was in good spirits. In fact, I was probably confident that Zhang Xiaoxiao would wake up in 3 days and 3 nights. It is one thing to know, but this kind of suffering will definitely make people anxious day and night. There's no need to call a doctor, I know my physical condition, nothing is wrong with me, and I'm in good spirits except for being a little hungry, everything else is fine, just like last time. Zhang Xiaoxiao pulled Song Moding, reluctant to let Song Moding go busy. Song Moding looked miserable. Song Moding turned around and hugged her tightly, as if he was afraid that she would disappear. You scare me to death, you know? I'm really afraid that you won't be able to sleep. We won't do surgery in the future, and we won't treat people anymore. I can't bear the feeling of losing you. I hope you can stay healthy and live happily by my side. Song Moding hugged Zhang Xiaoxiao tightly. Who knew the suffering of these 3 days and 3 nights? If Zhang Xiaoxiao had to fall asleep for 3 days and 3 nights every time he helped others treat a disease, he would rather Zhang Xiaoxiao not become a doctor. In addition to doctors, there are many professions to choose from in this world. Even if Zhang Xiaoxiao doesn't work, he can still support his wife. He couldn't bear the feeling that he might lose his lover at any time. He looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao sleeping there, his breathing getting weaker and weaker, as if he might disappear at any time. That feeling is pain and suffering that no one else can imagine. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 380. Chapter 380. If you love her, give her freedom. Zhang Xiaoxiao smiled. Don't be like this, brother Song, I'm really fine. I can assure you that there is nothing wrong with my body. I don't know the real reason why I am lethargic so far. But I want to be a doctor. For doctors I have a natural love. I want to help the world and save people, cure diseases, and save people. This is probably the happiest thing for me. Brother Song, I know you are worried about me. But in this world, birth, old age, illness, and death are difficult to control. Even if I do nothing and go out for a walk, I might encounter a car accident or encounter some natural or man-made disaster. While eating, someone might choke to death with a mouthful of rice. If this is the reason, shouldn't we all do nothing? The only thing I can promise you is that I will protect myself. I still want to live happily with you for the rest of my life. Our little family is not complete yet. I still want our own children. I want to be a good mother and watch you be a good father. Okay. Brother Song. Zhang Xiaoxiao is stubborn. For her, being a doctor was once her most passionate career. She has done this all her life in her last life, and now she is asked to give up everything she once loved and become a simple housewife. This is not the ideal state she wants to accept. Nor is she the ideal married life she wants. She knew that Song Moding cared about her and loved her, but love made her give up all this. Zhang Xiaoxiao probably can't do it. Having lived for so many years, I have seen many ups and downs in that world. I have seen many independent and self-reliant women, including the 3 children I raised, even though my stepson and stepdaughter are not my biological children. But in them, she saw the living conditions that young people of that generation should really enjoy. After receiving the most advanced new education, let her be a traditional housewife. This is completely unacceptable to Zhang Xiaoxiao, not even in the name of love. Song Moding sighed. He knew that the most shining light in Zhang Xiaoxiao was when she entered the state where she was most comfortable and did what she liked best. That look in her eyes was shining and confident, and her whole person was shining with light, making it difficult not to focus on her or look away. Zhang Xiaoxiao's state when he entered the operating room, the look he looked back at himself before entering the operating room. It's still hard to forget that feeling. Zhang Xiaoxiao seemed to be shining brightly and looking down at the world. Such arrogance and confidence. His request just now was selfish. He was really worried that he would lose Zhang Xiaoxiao, so he selfishly asked her to be a housewife. That's right, if Zhang Xiaoxiao's greatest self-confidence is removed, then he is a truly selfish man. If you love her, you must give her all the freedom. If you love her, you must give her everything. If you love her, you must become a man who can match her. Rather than taking away all the glory from her. Break her wings. I know, Xiaoxiao, I will become the man who can stand side by side with you. Zhang Xiaoxiao hugged Song Moding tightly. How could she have met this man who was in tune with her soul, willing to tolerate her and treat her tenderly. Fan Xiuying handed the bowl in her hand to her daughter. She had already brought an insulated lunch box. The son-in-law called her to tell her that her daughter had woken up. Fan Xiuying immediately brought cooked chicken porridge to visit her daughter. My son has recovered very well, and the doctor said he can be discharged from the hospital in 3 days. Now that their daughter has woken up again, it is a double happiness for their family. The day my son was discharged from the hospital was New Year's Eve. Fan Xiuying really hopes that at the beginning of the new year, all the bad things from last year will disappear and never come back again. Children can continue their lives in peace. Don't eat too much at once. You suddenly slept for 3 days and 3 nights without eating anything. Your stomach won't be able to bear it if you eat too much. The doctor told me. You frightened your son-in-law. Your parents were also frightened. Did you know that your son-in-law stayed by your side for 3 days and 3 nights without even daring to blink, for fear that if he blinked, you would disappear? Your parents are also here, and I have never seen a son-in-law love you so much. Although your parents love you, they feel they are no better than your son-in-law. Fan Xiuying thought about the process of the two of them being exhausted mentally and physically. After all, Zhang Lei had just completed the operation, Zhang Xiaoxiao just fainted, and the doctor said it was fine. Fan Laobao stayed by Zhang Xiaoxiao's side, but he spent more time visiting Zhang Lei. This is not to say that there is favoritism over anyone, but that under such circumstances, people's worries will naturally tend towards the one who is most serious. Song Moding stayed by Zhang Xiaoxiao's side, not leaving even an inch without blinking. Even if Fan Xiuying asked him to go to dinner, he refused. This child is so worried about Zhang Xiaoxiao. Zhang Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "Mom, I know." Looking at Song Moding, who was washing her own towel, her fingers were not dirty at all, but Song Moding wiped them clean, every bit of her, carefully. Mo Ting will be here in a moment. You go home to eat and have a good sleep. Now that Xiao Xiao is awake and I am here to watch over her, you don't have to worry so much. You haven't slept for 3 days and 3 nights. Even good people can't bear it and must go back to rest. Fan Xiuying felt heartbroken when she saw her son-in-law. This kid is really a good kid. Song Moding nodded, "Mom, I understand. I will definitely listen to what you say. I will be relieved when Xiao Xiao wakes up. I will definitely go back and sleep well. Don't worry about my health. I am so young. It doesn't matter to me if I don't sleep at night." Looking at Zhang Xiao snacking with gentle eyes. Even if you are young, you have to take your body seriously. Okay, don't look there. If you look at it again, you won't be able to pull it out. Xiao Xiao can't run away, and your wife is awake. The doctor also said I will be discharged after 1 more day of observation today. You just need to go back to sleep and wake up to pick up Xiao Xiao from the hospital. Besides, look at how unshaven you are. You haven't washed your face, combed your hair, or shaved your beard. You ask Xiao Xiao to say, "Can you still meet people like this?" Fan Xiuying really couldn't bear to scold her son-in-law. But we can't let this child suffer here. Brother Song, please go back and have a good rest, then take a shower, change clothes, shave, and then come and take me home. Zhang Xiaoxiao also knew that Song Moding was too tired, and she felt distressed. Song Moding nodded and did not insist. Mother-in-law is right. She is indeed too sloppy now. It is necessary to go home and take a good rest and tidy up. He is very happy that Zhang Xiaoxiao will be discharged from the hospital tomorrow and they can finally go home. Coupled with the fact that my brother-in-law will be discharged from the hospital in 3 days, I can finally live a good year this year. End of this chapter.